Okay.
Doesn't it say show me the
I
Carfax?
thought you said the so I was like,
Yes.
Okay. I'm Cassie, and I'm going to be refuting Alex's speech on gun control. His main claim is that stricter gun laws will fail to help prevent crimes. His secondary claims are: one, a state's violent crime rate has a direct negative relationship with how many guns the citizens own. Two, states with stricter gun laws have worse crime rates than those that don't. And three, most guns used in violent crimes are obtained illegally and thus would not have been stopped with stricter gun laws. My rebuttal today is that stricter gun laws won't prevent overall crime, but it'll decrease gun-related crime. His first secondary claim is that a state's violent crime rate has a direct negative relationship with how many guns the citizens own. He states that out of 31 states that have a right to carry guns, they have on average a 24% lower crime rate, 19% lower murder rate, and 39% lower robbery rate. The problem with the statement is that he didn't give a citation source, so we don't know if it's actually a credible statistic. In my own research, I found that according to James Agreste's article in Just Facts, 16,000 murders were committed in the U.S. in 2012. Of these, about 11,000, or 67%, were committed with firearms. So overall, alleviating guns would reduce deaths by firearm. His next secondary claim is that states with stricter gun laws have worse crime rates than those that don't. As an example, he talks about the District of Columbia, which has some of the worst crime stats in the country despite outlawing any privately owned guns. To me, his claim seems more like a generalization because there are many states that do have strict gun laws with little crime rate. Just one of the examples, Hawaii has strict gun control, and according to cityrating.com, the violent crime rate for Hawaii in 2010 was lower than the national violent crime rate average by 33.7%. His last secondary claim is that guns used in violent crimes are obtained through illegal means and would not have been stopped with stricter gun laws. My counterclaim to this is that although criminals can and probably will go out of their way to obtain guns illegally, there are multiple cases in which gun control is useful. A major example is suicide. According to Pew Research Center, suicides by gun accounted for about 6 of every 10 firearm deaths in 2012. Suicides are much higher with gun availability because it's much easier to act immediately on your impulse when a gun is available. There are also situations in which people unexpectedly snap, such as a drug user or a disturbed teenager or an angry lover, etc. When they do snap, being limited to a gun comes into hand because they can't easily access one. So in essence, when you can't easily acquire a firearm, you have less chance of using one. What I found interesting is that according to Daily News, the man responsible for the Sandy Hook shooting in Newtown, Connecticut, was carrying 3 heavy-duty guns which were all registered to his mom. So he obtained his guns by going into his mom's closet and then shooting her, and then going to the elementary school and shooting about 25 other people. So overall, gun control won't prevent overall crime, but it will decrease gun-related crime.
I knew it. Well, I thought he was friends with
All right, I think things start off pretty well with the claims being laid out and easy to follow. You're going to suggest some contradictory claims on those issues, and I think that sounds right. The first point You basically criticize the advocate's evidence for a lack of citation, which I think is a legitimate press. Although I don't know that it automatically renders everything that the advocate is saying illegitimate, I do think you need to be able to make some arguments that apply specifically to that evidence. The argument that you do make is that that 67% of the murders that are committed with guns, and I think that that's like I said, a good general response, but that's going to be the same general response on a lot of issues. And it's not particular to the point that the advocate was making here. The argument that I thought might be most particular and works best at responding to the reasoning that the advocate used was the criticism of the DC example by showing that it's an isolated case and that in fact that there are places that do have gun laws that have been able to have substantial reduction in crime. So you've got a good counterexample on that point, and that does apply very directly to the claim that the advocate was presenting there. The argument about suicides, though, that's really an argument that argues that there's some extra benefit from gun control, but it doesn't address the claim of fact about whether or not gun control would reduce crime. So in a policy context, that might be an added benefit, like an additional advantage that you would get from advocating gun control. But for the claim of fact, it really isn't relevant to the proposition that the advocate was presenting here. On the argument about impulse crimes, what you need to be able to do is show how gun control would either have an effect on access to guns by people who commit impulse crimes. All you do is show that impulse crimes happen, and you mentioned the example of Sandy Hook at the end, where the guns were obtained basically, they were owned legally by the mother of the killer, who was also the first victim of the killer. And I'm not exactly sure what that example gets you. Is it a demonstration that gun control laws work or they don't work? It's not really clear how that argument is going to advance the position that you're taking relative to the advocate. Like I said, I thought you started off pretty well organized. I didn't think it stayed quite as organized during the presentation, and you got off on a couple of side notes along the way. All right, thank you.